Kylie, a girl enjoying her bath, casually turned off the faucet with her foot while listening to music through her headphones. She was completely unaware of the slimy alien slug making its way toward her. When she finally laid eyes on it, she let out a scream. The slug hopped onto her back, making its way toward her mouth. If it got in there, it would take over her mind. She put up a fierce fight and pulled it out just in the nick of time. She quickly put on her clothes and dashed outside, shouting for help. But her mom was already sick, lying in a pool of blood. That's when her sister began to scream. There were slugs all over the place, just flooding the house. Kylie burst through the bedroom door, but she had missed her chance. Her sisters were having a tough time already. More slugs came pouring into the room. Kylie slipped out onto the balcony, but the entire second floor was swarming with monsters. Feeling like there was no other option, she took the leap. Just when she was about to get up and dash away, her dad suddenly collapsed right in front of her. Slugs came rushing in behind her, just like a wave. Kylie hopped into the car, but guess what? No keys were in there. She looked on in disbelief as slugs crawled all over the vehicle. After what seemed like an eternity, the danger finally passed. But Kylie quickly found out something even scarier. It was like her family had somehow come back to life. They looked pretty monstrous, like their bodies were being controlled by slugs. And just like that, it felt like everyone in town turned into the Walking Dead. What in the world was going on here? So, the story starts in Wheelsea, which is this really quiet little town in South Carolina. The annual deer hunting festival was just around the corner, bringing in loads of tourists to the area. Starla was a young and lovely teacher in the town. When she was teaching, the boys hardly ever seemed to pay attention. After class, even the male teacher couldn't help but strike up a conversation with her. Out of nowhere, a guy appeared and grabbed Starla, pulling her away. "So, that guy over there? That's Grant, Starla's husband. He might have come off a bit rough, but his love for Starla was genuine. So, one night, after a heated argument about intimacy, Grant just lost it and stormed out, making a beeline for the local bar. A girl walked up to him and started chatting. As Grant took a closer look, he noticed it was Brenda, the younger sister of his ex-girlfriend. It had been more than 10 years since they last saw each other. While they chatted and sipped their drinks, their conversation naturally drifted into the nearby woods. So, it turns out that Brenda has been crushing on Grant for years. They were caught up in a passionate kiss when, all of a sudden, Grant pulled back right at the crucial moment. He thought about his wife, Starla, and said, "Starla will worry if I stay out too long." Out of nowhere, a meteor came crashing down from the sky, landing smack in the woods nearby. When it hit the ground, it cracked open and showed a weird, sack-like thing inside. Grant, feeling a bit curious, gave it a poke with a stick. Out of nowhere, a sharp, spike-like tentacle shot out and jabbed him right in the chest. A strange alien parasite swiftly made its way into Grant's body through the tentacle. Brenda called out for Grant in a panic, but to her surprise, Grant popped back up on his feet. He was like a walking corpse, totally ignoring Brenda's calls. He just turned around and walked out of the woods, not saying a thing. Grant made it home pretty quickly. Once he got inside, he cleared out the meat and made a cozy nest of leaves down in the basement. The next morning, Grant found himself pulled into the living room by the sound of music. There, he spotted Starla, all snug in her bathrobe. As Grant got closer, she took her time to slip off the robe, showing off her sexy lingerie. It was obvious she was looking to patch things up after last night's argument. Even with the alien parasite taking over Grant, he still found himself shedding tears. Unfortunately, he couldn't find a way to let Starla know. Right then, Starla spotted a wound on his body. Later at school, Starla's colleague couldn't help but notice how radiant and happy she seemed. Starla was really excited to share her recent experience, saying that her husband felt like a totally different person. As Starla was having a chat, Grant found himself at the supermarket, eyeing the raw meat in the freezer with a bit of drool. After thinking it over for a bit, he decided to grab every piece of meat the store had. When Starla got back home, she noticed that the basement was locked up. Grant mentioned that it was a surprise for her birthday party. Starla had no idea at all, even with her birthday still 2 months off. Out of nowhere, Grant could feel the creature inside him thrashing around wildly. It seems like the raw meat just wasn't cutting it anymore. The neighbor's dog went wild barking when it spotted him. Grant looked at it with eager eyes. That night, Grant's body transformed even more noticeably. He started to feel hungrier and hungrier. Starla was in the shower, prepping for the opening party of the deer hunting festival. Under the influence of the alien parasite, Grant crept up on Starla from behind, gradually reaching out with two slimy tentacles. At that moment, Grant caught a glimpse of Starla's gentle face from the side. His love for her held him back from attacking, not wanting to hurt Starla. Grant just turned and made his way to Brenda's house instead. Brenda couldn't believe her eyes when she saw him. She mentioned that she believed he had passed away that night in the woods. But Grant just didn't respond. Instead, he pulled off his shirt, and there they were, two creepy tentacles sticking out of his stomach. Brenda realized it was too late to push back. The tentacles pushed into her, placing alien eggs within her. So, there was Starla, just hanging out at the party, but Grant never made it. So, Bill, the police chief of the town, came up to her. Things got a bit uncomfortable really fast. So, they used to date, right? But Starla had this big dream of heading to Hollywood, while Bill decided to go the route of becoming a cop. In the end, they went their separate ways. When Starla was having a tough time with money, it was Grant, who had plenty, that stepped in to help her out. So in the end, Starla ended up marrying Grant. When Starla got back from the party, she walked into her living room, and it was completely dark. Grant looked totally different, all swollen and out of shape. He said he got stung by a bee, and that he already picked up some medicine from the doctor. But the next day, Grant still wasn't feeling any better. Feeling concerned, Starla reached out to the doctor, who seemed taken aback and mentioned that he hadn't seen Grant in more than a year. It's clear that Grant wasn't being truthful. Starla started to feel a bit off. Later on, she realized that a lot of pets in town were missing. So, that night, Bill knocked on her door once more. So, they found out that Brenda had just up and disappeared without a trace. So, it turns out someone spotted Grant going into her house, and there were signs of a struggle all over the place. So, it turns out Grant is the main suspect now. Starla was in shock that her husband could actually do something like that. Bill handed her his card and said to give him a call right away if she spotted Grant. Once Bill was gone, Starla felt her anxiety ramping up. With a deep breath, she took a swing and broke down the locked basement door using a baseball bat. The air was suddenly filled with a terrible smell. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, noticing animal skins draped all around. Grant had taken their flesh and organs to feed Brenda. Starla quickly picked up the phone to give Bill a call. When she turned around, there was Grant, just standing outside the window watching her. Starla let out a terrified scream and attempted to flee, but Grant quickly grabbed her. When Grant saw the fear on Starla's face, he couldn't shake the feeling that she had let him down. He ripped his shirt open, showing off the two tentacles once more, planning to make her the next host for his alien offspring. At that moment, Bill heard the noise and rushed into the house. Realizing he was outmatched, Grant decided to make a run for it, leaving Starla in the dust. Grant showing up really stirred things up for the town's mayor. People from all over were arriving for the deer hunting festival. The mayor was worried that if word got out about Grant, all the tourists would be scared off, so he told Bill to catch Grant as fast as he could. Bill's analysis shows that a lot of the recent animal disappearances occurred close to ranches. It seems like Grant was out there gathering some meat in the area. Bill thought it would be a good idea to set a trap at the next ranch that night. The officers quickly grabbed their gear and got ready to head out. Just when Bill was about to head out, Starla popped up and blocked the way. She explained to them that she married Grant not for his money, but because she really loved him, even now. She still thought Grant was just unwell. Starla pleaded with Bill, asking him not to take his life. Plus, the only way to save Brenda was to capture him alive. After some hesitation, Bill finally decided to let Starla come along on the mission. So, that night, the police decided to set up an ambush around the ranch. Local hunters even showed up on their own to lend a hand. So there we were, just chatting away, when suddenly a shadowy figure with tentacles popped up out of nowhere. It was Grant, you know. He casually swung a tentacle and took down a bull in an instant. As Bill was figuring out his next step, Starla suddenly dashed ahead and shouted for Grant. Even though Grant hardly seemed human anymore, she still held on to the hope that she could convince him to give up and seek help. At that moment, the officers gradually surrounded him. A hunter finally snapped and started shouting threats at Grant. Right before everyone's shocked eyes, the hunter's body just split in two. Bill quickly shouted for everyone to start firing. But even with Grant's massive size, he effortlessly dodged the bullets and vanished into the woods. The group hurried after him and soon stumbled upon a little house where Brenda was being kept. When they walked into the room, everyone was totally taken aback by what they saw. Brenda was really bloated and hard to recognize. Even in that situation, she was so hungry that she was pleading with the officers to let her eat the rats scurrying around on the floor. Before Bill could wrap his head around what just happened, Brenda's body suddenly puffed up and burst like a balloon. A whole bunch of alien slugs came spilling out of her body. Luckily, Bill jumped into action right away. He quickly covered Starla's mouth, making sure the slugs couldn't get to them. Unfortunately, the townspeople didn't have the same fortune. A whole bunch of slugs made their way into the ranch owner's house, and before long, they had infected the whole family. Kylie was the only one left, stuck in a car and shaking with fear while her infected family closed in around her. So Bill went ahead and pulled the unconscious officers outside. Since there was no cell signal in the woods, he figured he'd use the radio in his car to call for backup. Just a few moments after he walked away, the unconscious officers suddenly came to. They started talking in voices that sounded just like Grant's. It seems like these alien creatures were all connected, totally under the control of their host. They were really trying to get Starla on board with their amazing evolution. With her gun empty, Starla had no choice but to take off and run for her life. Bill went back for the police car and managed to rescue Kylie just in the nick of time from the monsters that were closing in on her. They hurried back and bumped into the mayor and Starla, who had just made their way out of the woods. While Bill was driving them to safety, he picked up the radio and asked the dispatcher at the station to call in some heavily armed backup from higher authorities. So, the alien slugs had already made it to the police station. The dispatcher got infected right after she hung up. Kylie then talked about what she had seen in the slug's memories. Putting together what he knew with what he had seen lately, Bill realized that everyone who got infected became part of Grant. Grant really wanted to take in everything that lives on Earth. They needed to take out Grant, the original host, to put an end to all the alien slugs and monsters in one go. Out of nowhere, they crashed the car. When Bill came to after being knocked out, he found himself surrounded by infected townspeople. Bill just didn't have enough time to save Starla, who was still out cold. So he grabbed Kylie and made a run for the police station. He was thinking about using the grenade to take out Grant. So, Starla was brought back home, which was kind of odd. The monsters didn't hurt her. They took their time to wash and dress her nicely. The next morning, Starla found herself waking up in her bedroom. If it weren't for the monsters growling outside, she might have thought it was all just a bad dream. Knowing there was no quick way out, she tucked a sharp hairpin away for protection. Out of nowhere, her favorite song began to play. Starla walked out of her bedroom and noticed the wall filled with her pictures. It was the birthday surprise that Grant had set up for her. Starla was brought to tears, but then she caught sight of the terrifying scene before her. Grant had turned into this huge, monstrous blob of flesh. He extended his tentacles, gently wrapping around Starla, attempting to fully connect with her. Starla finally realized that her true husband was gone, and the being in front of her was just an alien parasite that had taken on Grant's memories. She started to gently reminisce about the sweet moments they shared, which gradually made Grant feel more at ease. Out of nowhere, she jabbed him with the hairpin. Grant waved his tentacles, and whoosh, Starla went flying across the room. Just then, Bill showed up with a Grant, and it got knocked right out of his hand. Bill was on a frantic hunt for the grenade, but just when he finally spotted it, Grant came in and knocked him aside. The grenade rolled into the swimming pool and went off without doing much of anything. Grant's tentacles reached out toward Bill. Bill grabbed one tentacle, but the other jabbed into his stomach, quickly injecting eggs into him. In that tense moment, Bill spotted a propane tank close by. With all his might, he shoved the tentacle into the tank's valve and twisted it open. Propane gas flowed into Grant's body through the tentacle. Grant could feel the danger creeping in, but Bill was gripping that tentacle tight. Starla picked up a gun from the floor and locked eyes with Grant. So, without thinking twice, she just pulled the trigger. Grant's body suddenly burst into flames, erupting with a fierce explosion. When Grant passed away, all the infected slugs and monsters just fell over right away. Besides the three survivors, there was hardly anyone else left in the town. So, at the end of the story, this cat comes over and starts licking Grant's brain. How wild is that? Out of nowhere, it got infected by the alien parasite, suggesting that the danger wasn't completely over.